If you've looked outside, stepped outside, or just turned on the TV, you know winter is officially here in Cleveland, and that means students and families are facing that daily question: will my school be open or closed? District CEO Eric Gordon is in the CMSD-TV studio with us today to discuss school closing protocols and answer some questions about what happens behind the scenes when it comes to making the snow day or no snow day decision. Thanks for joining us here today, Eric.
Thanks, Shannon.
We're so happy to have you and be able to help the families learn more about what happens behind the scenes when it comes to making these snow day decisions. So first, who determines whether we get a snow day or not?
That is me. I'm the person that ultimately makes the decision about whether school is open or not. But it's done after a large number of people help us. So our operations team and I start discussing school closings usually at 4 a.m. And monitor through 5:30 a.m. when we must make a decision before buses start starting on the roads. If the weather allows us, we actually try to make decisions the night before, but so often we're facing predictions and have to really see what actual conditions are. And so 4 a.m. there's a team of us on the phone. We're talking with the Cleveland Police about road conditions. We're monitoring weather service and just a number of other ways before I ultimately have to make the call.
Wow, so not a decision that we take lightly around here, obviously.
Not at all.
What are some of the factors that affect your decision to close or not close the schools?
So essentially our goal around school closings is our goal is to be open if we can. And that's not only because it's our job to educate children, but also we have families that rely on us for daycare and you know, who's going to keep their child safe while they're at work. And also for food sometimes, for breakfast and lunch. When we do have to close, we look at a number of weather conditions. We look at the temperature. We look at a combination of the real temperature and the wind temperature gives us a wind chill factor. We look at the snow conditions, particularly if we get a large amount of snow during the transport time. This city is equipped pretty well for snow, but if we start getting a really heavy snow, one of those 6+ inch snows, that's obviously a factor. We look at the combination of them, if it's snowing and blowing and cold and all of those sorts of things. So it's a number of conditions. We rely really heavily on the National Weather Service, which actually gives us hour-by-hour information from the National Weather Center that predicts the kinds of advisories and warnings that help us make those decisions as well.
And there's a difference here. We're talking about closings a lot of the time, but what about starting, a delay in the morning or even closing early? What goes into those decisions?
So our schools don't delay, and that's because so many of our students rely on RTA, and RTA cannot run a delayed bus schedule for school children. So our decision really is whether we open or whether we close. We can and do early release in circumstances where conditions have changed really dramatically, and again, it really is based on safety. But even when we release, we only release students where we know that there's going to be someone to safely accept them at home. And so our goal is to be either fully open or fully closed, again with our bias to be open if at all possible.
And what about those before and after school activities? I'm sure a lot of families are concerned about those in these cold temperatures in this time of year, so how does that work?
Sure. So in general, if school is closed, the activities are closed as well. There are exceptions if there are unique events that are really difficult to reschedule and those sorts of things. But if school is closed, activities are usually canceled as well. If school is open and weather conditions change, then we start making those decisions in mid-morning and early afternoon. And so students should know before they leave from school whether or not they will have those activities in that afternoon. When schools are closed on a Friday, we make Saturday and Sunday activity decisions based on the then current conditions, and so we do not assume that everything's canceled for the weekend. And again, we would point people to all of our media outlets to find out what activities are actually still going on.
And obviously this has been a lot about the students and the families and school for them, but there's a staff
Sure.
that goes to these schools as well. So what happens for them on these days?
So when schools are closed, our school employees are off too. That's our teachers and our principals and the people who work in our schools. But our district offices remain open. This is a business like any other business. Businesses are expected to go to work, and our employees are expected to do so as well. So in general, our school offices, the administrative centers, are open. In those rare events where the city declares an emergency situation and asks businesses to close, we then would close administrative offices as well.
And how are families notified mostly? What is the place, where should they go? Where are they listening or watching? Obviously everyone probably turns on their
Sure.
favorite news channel, but what can you tell families
Sure,
about that?
we actually notify all 4 news channels, and so obviously the TV is one access point, but we actually use an awful lot of just-in-time technologies. So families who have up-to-date contact information can get an automated phone call from the school, can get a social media posting on our Facebook and Twitter accounts, can get a text message alert sent from us. We send email, we post it on our website, and so I would really encourage all of our families to make sure their contact information is up to date, because the people who have up-to-date contact information will have the information far more quickly than any of our broadcast stations are able to put it on TV.
Great. And you mentioned obviously that immediacy, social media. I don't want to throw you for a curveball here, but that's obviously also a place where people can go and immediately express their concerns or, their opinions and let them air out there on days like this. So what do you want to say to those families in these situations? Obviously, this is a tough decision.
This is a tough decision, and ultimately the decision is also a family decision. And if a family really feels that we've opened and their child is not safe to come to school, I understand that they may keep their child home. I don't want them to. I want children in school, but I understand it. And I just hope that our community understands we're a very large district. What is happening on the west side of the city looks totally different from the east side of the city. What's happening north by the lake is very different than the southern part, down by John F. Kennedy High School. And so it is a very complex decision that we take very seriously, but we also realize that our parents and caregivers have the same decision to make for their individual child, and we respect that. And feedback is always welcome. I've had feedback about, thanking me for making the decision families had hoped, and I've also had feedback criticizing me for not making the decision they'd hoped. And that is true even when you open and even when you close. This is not a decision that is easy for everyone to accept.
Although most kids, if it's a snow day, they're probably going to be pretty happy.
Most
I
of the
shouldn't
time.
say that.
Most of the time, but last year when we had a lot of snow days, we even had kids saying, "When do we go back to school?" Which is a great thing. I'm so glad to hear them say that.
That's what we want to hear. I like that.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here and shedding a little light on making that snow day decision. It's a big one.
It is
a big deal. All right.
It is.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Shannon.
Yeah. All right, well, to ensure you get the information you need on snow days and other emergency days, like the CEO said, make sure your child's school has accurate contact information. We can't stress that enough. That's including home phone and cell phone numbers. And make sure you like the CMSD Facebook page and follow us on Twitter to get those instant alerts he referred to for all school closings. And finally, stay safe and stay warm. Thanks for joining us. So CEO and forecaster is what you're telling me.
My next career will be a meteorologist.
Perfect.